Well, good morning, everyone.
Hello.
Thanks for coming back for day 3. We're going to keep this. It's a Sunday morning. We all got probably surprised that we lost an hour this morning. So the promise is to keep this very real and keep you awake. And if we're not keeping you awake, just raise your hand and shake it back and forth, and we'll try and change up the questions. But to start. I'd love for each of the panelists, and maybe we'll start with you, Meghan, to go through, introduce yourself without talking about your title of your company. Cheat right behind you to your left, right? All of our names and companies are up there, but just love to hear about for you to get to know each of the panelists just as human beings.
All right, this is working. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Meghan Shookman. I help progress health and wellness by showing consumers that there are better for you options that do taste better.
Hi, Ken Lagana, 25 years in the advertising and marketing space at companies such as CBS, Odyssey, and my current company, which is an ad tech company. So excited to be here. And John, thanks for keeping us on track and setting this whole thing up, baby.
Yeah, so before we go to the next one, what do you do outside of work?
I'm a real estate buff. So I dabble in real estate, something my wife and I like to do. So that's something I do outside of work.
Awesome. And Meghan?
I love to hike, to kayak in Lady Bird Lake. I'm local to Austin, so if you're looking for any recommendations, I'm happy to provide them. Bike, all the outdoors things, all the restaurant explorations. We have a great patio scene here in Austin.
Awesome.
That sounds so much more fun than real estate.
It is.
Please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Senna Bayasgalan. I am originally from South Korea and Singapore, moved here, and was supposed to be a lawyer, but I'm a rogue person, so I don't even think my parents know what I do. But one of my passions is really help elevate, diverse background people to get into creative industries, and I'm part of an organization called Asians in Advertising. So I do that through that organization.
That's cool.
I'm Luiz Felipe. I'm Brazilian born. Second time that I live here in the US. I lived in 3 other countries before. I have twins, married with my high school sweetheart, and I love almost every racket sport that you can imagine. I play 10 to 15 hours a week. I wake up very early morning to make sure that I can play 1 to 1 hour and a half every day.
Awesome, thank you. I'm John. I've been around the Brand Innovators community for a few years. Actually going back to the first time here at Lamberts. If you see Mark Sternberg, he can tell you the story of digging up the street to get fiber into this building and Wi-Fi. Anyway, it's been a few years. But first and foremost, I'm a dad. That's my favorite title and why I do this. And then secondly, while it's fun to be up here, I would much rather be outside doing something. I am a huge backpacker and cyclist and spent a lot of time volunteering there. And my kids, before they were knew or smart enough to say no, they were camping up at mountain lakes and building igloos and all kinds of things. So that's a little bit about me. But on the panel today, the topic is trends, and many of you, just looking into and having networked with a lot of you, we've been around this event, we've been around the industry for a little while, and we certainly have had know our share of buzzwords. Whether big data, I don't know if anybody out spent millions of dollars in NFTs. We can go on and on and on about things that we're going to take away all of our jobs and change the world. So this panel up here is going to tell you all the things that absolutely will come to pass over the next couple of years.
It's a lot of pressure, John.
It is, and to set that up, to make it even more difficult, I'll borrow something from Paul Wilmington, who was on a Brand Innovator stage at CES, and he said when it comes to trends, there are 2 types of people. There are those who don't know, and then there are those who don't know that they don't know. Anyway, a great way to set up a trends panel, right? Either you don't know or you don't know that you don't know. So with that, we're going to try and have a little fun and work on some topics. And I'm going to start with Meghan. Would love to hear how your brand, you've been building it, and really that fan influence, those were your words, fan-influenced storytelling. And is that a big trend that other brands should be considering? Of course, not your competitors, but everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I came from larger CPG organizations where you would learn or you would think that, you know, organic social, not scalable, influencer, not scalable, customer service, just something you do as a baseline. Well, I'm here to tell you that fan-based storytelling truly can be scaled, and that's exactly what has driven the hyper growth of the Olipop brand. And I've got some of my MVPs out here in the crowd. I've got Izzy, my content creator extraordinaire, who's developed all of our organic content on Instagram, TikTok. I've got Kirsty Ann and Paige, who have been curating all of our influencer base. And when I say influencers, that's everyone from like your neighbor down the street to Cam Brinks. And that's what's made the brand so successful, is building this groundswell of real fans. And when we do find some of those top tier talent that we partner with, it's because they have a real Olipop story to tell. And so I think there's so much opportunity for fan-based storytelling to scale in the future. You think about everything from community building. A simple comment on a post can get tens of thousands of likes and views. Organic social. On average, we get 40,000 views on our posts, which is just wild. Our influencer team drove 2 billion impressions through all of those engagements. And it's really about listening to your fan base, allowing them to tell the story, and then fan those flames once you see something that's working. And I think a great example from the last year was we saw a lot of consumers making Sleepy Girl mocktails with Olipop. We chose to then latch on to that for Dry January and doing a partnership with Instacart in delivering Olipop to consumers every Friday for free. We also saw that, and one of the most frequent comments we got was, "Hey, hire me, I'm your biggest ambassador." Well, look, we hired 2 people to be our ambassadors and made a campaign of it by sending them to one of our city blitzes to serve as our chief soda curators. So there's opportunities galore to let your consumers tell those stories and find a way to amplify them, because authenticity is what works today. People don't want to hear from brands, they want to hear from real humans. And when you have real humans behind the brand, helping other humans to telling the story, that's what wins.
Awesome.
Very good.
Any other points of view? Is it scalable, Ken?
I clearly it's scalable. I think I've seen a bunch of your stuff. I mean, it's unbelievable. So it is. Look, I think that in the world in which we live today, there's obviously a lot of different ways to get your message out, but knowing your consumer at the end of the day and knowing how to be authentic with your consumer and personalization is a big topic that we all like to talk about in the marketplace today, but there's really truth to that, and how you can deliver personalization to your and deliver your brand love is something that I think is really important today.
Okay. Anything else? I know you've been in this same space as well.
Yeah, well, I have a counterpoint. When I was at AB InBev, we used to have, of course, some very large brands that everyone knows here, but we also had a craft beer business that was huge when you combine all the pieces. Yeah. So for the craft brands, we influencer marketing activation, building communities, those things, especially when you are starting, is amazing and extremely effective. And then you get to some point, that you have a lot of scale, that you are very big. So if you are a company with 95% unaided awareness, which most of the beer brands we used to have on the large side of the business were, that's another different game, because you need recurring reach among your potential buyers. In the US, 70 million people drinking beer every single day. So how do you get to reach 70 million people? There's no way of doing that without media. Data is a lever to make sure that you are more effective, to make sure that you don't reach the other 250 million Americans that don't drink beer because they can't, because they don't have the age, because they prefer other drinks. And that brings a lot of efficiency. So the two sides of the story are super critical, because when you reach to that type of scale, like you mentioned, 2 billion impressions, extremely impressive. Like there are few brands that can get to that organically. We couldn't, most of our brands, but we needed, in average, 14 billion impressions in the US alone just to keep market share.
Maybe Senna, you could add to this. I completely feel and believe in that customer human first approach, that ultimately like the best work is human to human marketing, and you're talking about doing it in just this wild growth for Olipop. But maybe Senna, from your perspective, like you're new into a company, you took on an amazing challenge. If you haven't met her, like one of the bravest, most adventurous souls I've met in terms of the role she's taken, she can tell you about it. But you've been tapped to come do a lot of growth. How do you maintain what has worked at a bank that you're putting a face behind? Like how do you think about that?
Yeah, so thank you. I recently moved to Baton Rouge, Louisiana from New York and DC to become the first CMO of Beyond Bank. I made the move. I got referred to the job by a really good friend. He called me out of nowhere and he's like, would you move to Louisiana for a job? I told him, are you crazy? No. But ultimately what made me change my mind was an incredible group of leadership. So our leadership is, our senior leaders are quite young for banking standard, and we're really adventurous, we're really aggressive in our acquisition and the growth, we're really serious about our growth, but really thoughtful growth, right? So when I think about when I made the move, I had mentors, peers, friends telling me like, oh my God, Senna, you're gonna be so bored. Like it's a really highly regulated industry. You're not gonna be able to do all the things you used to do. But I really think creativity loves constraint. And I think we can really create incredible, authentic, relatable stories, and not necessarily all ads, but stories when we really connect the brand, connect the mission, connect the people and culture. So that's what I'm really hoping to do. And when you think about financial sector, we're really it's not that exciting. When you think about bank, advertising, bank campaign, bank stories and marketing, you don't really think like, oh, that's really fun, like Olipop, right? Like your influencers doing cool stuff. But what I'm really hoping to do is of course, we want to story tell our mission and what we're trying to do for our customers, our small business owners. But at the same time, I want to co-create that story and then really take it to the next level and make it story making with our customers and our prospects, because I think people, don't want to just see ads or campaigns or don't want to be sold to. They want to co-create their experience with you. And then when you think about small business owners who are our clients, they need they don't just need bank, because banks all do the same thing, right? But they really need that kind of partner who can understand their challenges, understand what they're going through, their pain points, their mission, their goals, and help them kind of be there with them through all of their growth, journey. So that's where we're trying to be.
Okay, that's as I said, courageous New York. Successful career and taking on a big one. Comments were made about beer, but there's even greater penetration on banking. And why do we choose one bank over the other? I'm sitting up here thinking to myself why I choose, probably because I've used them for a long time. Location of ATMs don't matter anymore. So I think it's an industry ripe for ripe for something different, to be the Olipop of banking. Would be kind of interesting. Okay, so all of this sounds really, really nice. Growth, tell human stories, yada, yada, yada. If you're a CFO, and you hear that story, we all can imagine what's probably on the generic CFO mind. I actually have a good friend who's a CFO. I shouldn't completely throw them all into the same bucket. They are humans too sometimes. Like how do we do this? How do we do these things, right? Spend on the technology, reposition, reimagine a bank, grow from a base where Olipop's at, and then try and reach other segments of people. Like how do you do that without the CFO throwing you out and saying, sorry, I can't see this being profitable this year, get the hell out of my office?
So if you are not able to prove the results and the impact that you drive, you're going to be thrown out in a couple of years. The shortest tenure of all the C-level is the CMO, less than 24 months on B2C companies. Why does that happen? Because every money that is allocated within a company by the CFO, the CEO, with the support of the board, is a capital allocation. You allocate capital to get returns. You build a new factory, you invest on technology, on more engineering, because you believe in a return, in a growth that you can drive. Marketing is the same. Why marketing budgets keep shrinking all over, and especially media budgets, which, again, I love creativity. I had a creators marketing agency. I think creativity is the only unfair advantage that a brand can have. But at the same time, if you don't put your creativity in front of your potential category buyers, you are going to lose market share. There's a lot of evidence-based marketing dating for 30 years ago and getting stronger and stronger. The Aaron Bass Institute, Les Binet, and Peter Field. The team from System 1 that are doing an amazing job on helping to assess the quality of the creative to see what is the impact you're going to drive. If you're not able to show to your CFO, and more than that, to your CEO and the board, the impact that you do, and there are ways to do that. Why performance marketing grew that much and got so unbalanced? Because you can go to the CFO with a number and say, I invested this much, and that was the return. And usually this number is pretty wrong because you're using less click attribution, MTA, some methodologies that are quite flawed, right? So you need to find ways to bring analytics, like why CFOs believe in revenue management. Even though a lot of the revenue management models are internal, they don't actually quite work very well, they don't have a lot of elements to influence, because they understand that language.
So if I like this line, creativity is the only unfair advantage. Is that what you're using with the CFO? Are you doing storytelling of the data?
Exactly not.
With imperfect models, then what are you doing?
No, that's quite the opposite. When you bring proofs and evidence and models that shows and forecast how your allocation can drive growth, that's when the CFO starts to pay attention to you. You need to prove that creativity is an unfair advantage. You need to show that the effectiveness of your campaigns can help you to drive even higher ROI. But at the same time, on the efficiency side, is where you cannot make a wrong move. Okay. It's where you need to have the best media mix. You need to be efficient. You need to cut all the inefficiencies and waste. And that's an important...
So is there a trend in that? Is there like one concise thing you'd say all brand marketers need to be doing in terms of getting support for program?
I think two things for me are critical. First, show that you have an understanding about how to measure growth and how you impact. You have marketing mix models, you have a lot of advanced analytics solutions that can help on that. But on the other hand, show your operational excellence. Show how efficient you are on cutting fraud, cutting waste, reaching the right audiences, being with the right context. That is so critical. I always like to tell an example. There's a chapter of an episode of Mad Men that the head of media starts to tell how busy he is because he needs to evaluate every show before he decides if they're going to place an ad there or not. And there's a crisis because of an ad that the client watched at night, and he felt that was not aligned with the values because of the content. That was effective, that worked. And we basically stopped doing that because media got too fragmented, because there are too many options. We need to go back to make sure that we use that technology. We use, I don't want to say the two letters, but you know which letters I'm talking about. You need to use all the levers that you can to be more efficient, to make sure they're impacted and reach the right people.
Okay.
Are you going to say AI?
Didn't want to be the first one. Thank you for that.
There we go.
I had to break the ice. I had to.
Yeah, you had to. And
Now it's allowed to use.
It's been used and continue to be used in so many different places. So, Meghan, does this resonate with what you're experiencing? I mean, you have a huge growth target. Does this kind of, these are my words now, like being able to speak to your customer in the way that you're doing, it's part of your growth, but then also maybe another language into the CFO? Like, does that resonate with you, or are you doing it differently?
Yeah, I mean, we are outspent by our competitors 5 to 10x, maybe even higher than that. So we absolutely have to get creative as we build the case to get the funding that our competitors have. So finding ways to ensure that whatever we're developing is going to get earned media coverage, because that's been our secret sauce. Find content that truly can be viral and give you the investment of your competitors without actually spending the dollars. So we're starting to build the fact base around that so that we can get greater investment, and finding ways to connect it to retail sales lift as well, because that's the biggest challenge, especially with a largely like CPG retail type of model. How do you drive that attribution before you have a marketing mix model? How do you find creative ways to show the earned media value of what you're doing before you have an actual marketing mix model, which we're working on getting to, but creativity wins the day, and it's finding ways to ensure that there is a viral element to everything that you do so that you can play the game a different way than your competitors.
Okay, interesting. Your comment about how you continue to be creative but continue to show performance with constraints is something I think many feel. Even me being at AT&T, and I guess in perspective, the budgets that I'm working with are quite substantial. At the same time, that's not how we fund every project, and the ones that are admittedly perform better, that provide more value, is when creativity loves constraints, as you're saying. Okay, so we were talking a little bit about trends. I think we've kind of dabbled on a couple things, and AI has only been mentioned twice, so I guess that's now, twice. Let's flip this a little bit differently, and I won't choose the order, but I would love to hear from everybody on a trend you got wrong, an investment you got wrong. You went to maybe your CFO and had it funded, or maybe it was something significant in test and learn that you got wrong, and what are you doing now? And if it's like too small, like it's kind of minimal, and you're like, oh, we're always testing, learning, and optimizing, I'm probably gonna call you on it. Like something significant. There's no media here, sort of, no press. We're not streaming, so who'd like to begin? What did you like, were super excited about and just didn't work?
I'll jump in. Look, I'm not a marketer. However, we do need to, and we have needed to market ourselves around events and things like that. When I was at CBS, when I was at Odyssey, et cetera, one of the things that we tried to do around some of our bigger events was keep people engaged by launching exclusive NFTs with artists. And I will tell you, it didn't do anything for us. People didn't understand them.
That was like the coolest thing at the time, right?
It was so cool. It was so cool.
Yeah.
Like we were doing, exclusive signed posters with big name talent. We were doing, all of this digital currency types of executions, and nobody cared. So it was, it was just not, the juice was not worth the squeeze, as they say.
Thanks for going first. I will say about like things you fail. Like I love the using the words today. It's just that first attempt in learning. But yeah, that was a big one. It was exciting at the time.
It was the next big thing.
Yeah, I personally didn't do anything, but I remember feeling like, oh, we're losing it, right? We should be all over this. I won't name the executives in meetings who are like, we should be all over this. And Not so much. Anybody else?
That reminds me of like, do y'all remember when blockchain was everything?
Yeah.
And all the companies were changing their name to something blockchain.
Yeah.
Like, what happened to that? You know?
Well, now it's .ai.
It is dot-
That's what it is.
No, but I had a CEO who's like, oh, the blockchain is the next big thing. We should change our name. We should change our website. I'm like, wait a second. Like, let's not react, because changing your whole company name is a really big deal. We can't just like get on the train and then go forward. And then thankfully we didn't, and then you see that later on looking back, I'm like, oh, thank God, you know. Usually being a marketing person, being a creative person, when CEO comes to you with like really cool ideas, like, let's try something, that's usually a good thing. But this is the first time I was like, oh, wait a second, like, let's not do that. That sounds like a really, really dangerous thing we're trying to get onto. But nobody's doing anything with blockchain. I don't know.
Is anybody doing anything with blockchain? No. Wow.
Not one hand. Not one hand.
Maybe the wrong crowd, because it still is quite important. But yeah, it's not. I'm glad you didn't change the name.
No.
Okay.
Me too.
Anybody else?
I can be a little controversial again. Personalization at scale of creative content didn't pay back. All the costs that you have with tools, smart tech, and even leveraging AI, the incremental CPM that it drives, it simply didn't pay off. And that was the good thing about having good measurement frameworks in place. We're spending millions a day, so of course it's a big investment, but we were able to spot out soon enough that all the spend and all the focus on personalizing creative was not paying off.
Yeah. Amen to that. That'll be one I would just pile on to yours, that we have just done extensively, whether it's on the media side or even on the direct marketing side. That's part of a team that does that, and people continue. It still works. I've been trying to kill off that program for a long time, but it still works, like sending things in the mail, like the postal service, as well as email. Like, it continues to work, and I'm like, man. But yeah, we've invested so much on the personalization side, and every time we run, the last couple of years is running tests. It's like, no. You don't need to be at specific in some places. Now, on the social side, I think it's entirely different. But yeah, some of those big levers are the traditional levers that we like to use when we think that we have control of the message. We think that we can buy someone's eyes. Yeah, those are the flops. Yeah.
I would say my flop, despite the fact that Olipop does social well, I have not done social well in the past and have learned from it. On an unnamed brand that I launched onto TikTok, we treated it like a TV ad. We leveraged a big name celebrity, assuming that we would just get some maximum reach. We created an actual script for 6 different segments that we posted. Did it perform? I guess, just because it was a big celeb name and we put paid behind it. But if we had not put paid behind it, it would have absolutely gotten forgotten, because this was a TV ad in a TikTok environment. So never again will I fully script out and leverage a celebrity who is not an actual organic fan of a product to put an ad out on TikTok. And so often we create these campaigns and we just spread the assets across all channels without customizing it to the actual channel and audience. And that's some of the lazy marketing, yes, I just called myself a lazy marketer, that I've done in the past. And it does require that real customization and curation. And not every product also belongs on TikTok Shop. Like most of your groceries, you're probably not going to buy on TikTok Shop. So just know that every trend is not for everyone, and every ad asset is not for every channel.
Yeah, I love that. This is borrowing from a colleague, but it's something we've done in all of our entire advertising organization and partners. Is we have flipped the traditional paid, owned, and earned, And every time we talk about it, I was looking at the presentation from somebody the other day, and they didn't do what we've asked, and it's earned, owned, and paid. Like, you begin on the earned side. Right? It is easier. We all know how to look at scripts and manicure things and edit it just the right way, but those aren't the things that always resonate. And so if you flip the approach to how do I get an individual to talk about it, like, you can really open up some magic. I think we've moved along, and we've got a couple other questions we can do, but if there's anything from you all out here listening, I didn't see any hands waving that we weren't talking about anything, weren't BSing too much, but hey, go ahead. I think is it Pedro?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I always have questions, man. So I'm Pedro. I'm with Winning. We work together. Luiz, I have a question like for you all. You said something that really struck with me, which is there's so much opportunity out there when you look like at not only content creators, but actually like fans of the brand and the culture in general. But Scott Galloway yesterday said choice is a tax that we pay because it's hard, it's brain power. And with the amount of opportunity we have, how do you make smart choices? What is the method of choosing where you're gonna turn to actionable things and what you're gonna like abandon? Like, no, blockchain is not the thing that we should. How do you make those choices?
Good question.
I can start. There's a concept that I really like called the category entry points, right? There are moments that you think about something, you have a problem that you need to solve, like I need to pay this check here, or and I don't have the limit on my credit card, or I want to buy a TV, and what are the things that I care about on a TV. And if your brand is able to be the first brand that people remembers when they have those challenges, those issues, those opportunities, then you build a good equity. Then you are able to do a good work on your positioning, on building differentiation. So let's map what are those category entry points for our brands, for our industries, being B2C, being B2B, and understand how we can tell them that we are solving a problem. So you are the first one to be remembered. I think this is so critical because we don't think about brands all the time on our daily lives. We are marketers, we think a little more than the average, but if you are married to someone, if you live with someone, if your friends are not from the industry, you will see that they don't talk a lot about brands. Nobody wakes up thinking about liquid hand washer or shampoo. I think about shampoo whenever I run out of shampoo, right? And usually I have another one from the same brand there.
Yeah, that may be a guy thing too.
Maybe a guy thing.
I don't know.
But at the same time, I recently needed to buy a TV. I wanted to buy the same brand that we had around the house. I like to standardize. And my wife came to me saying, no way we're buying that TV, I want that one. And I said, yeah, why you have such a strong opinion about a TV? And said, because of the remote control. I never heard someone saying, I'm choosing a TV because I like the remote control of that brand. That's my wife's category entry point, right? My category entry point is I like a good operating system that integrates all my streamings, because I hate opening streaming by streaming to try to find the content.
I think you just said you're the CTO and your wife is the CMO and CEO, I think. Because let me guess, she bought the TV that she's
Isn't
the
that always the
CEO,
way,
the
though?
CFO.
Oh, okay, good.
What?
You've been married.
the title.
You've been married a while then.
For a while, yeah.
there we
My
go.
high school sweetheart, remember that.
Yeah.
Hey, John, I do want to throw something out, and I, you know, as you were asking that question, I think it's really important to look at what you're doing as a brand or as you're doing as a business. And, you know, I'll use Spotify as the example where, you know, they leverage their own data analytics and insights, and they create something called Wrapped at the end of every year that I'm sure, you know, a lot of us in the marketplace really look forward to. And so if you have the ability to really leverage, I think, what you're doing organically as a business, like you really have to look at that. And then I think the channels will manifest themselves based on, you know, how successful you are of leveraging your own data analytics and insights. Just a thought.
Awesome. Anybody else? Questions? We have a mic runner. We need a mic. I can project. Or you can project. Go ahead.
I see the hand. Here we go. So, Johan Reed, I'm a B2B CMO, and I was listening, trying to take away some things that I can apply in a B2B context, but I'd love to get your thoughts as people who get marketed to all the time by B2B marketers. What should I take away from what you've learned and apply it as we think about the consumerization of B2B?
B2B doesn't exist. You're talking to human beings. Said as a guy who technically does B2B marketing, but I think it's a dirty word. Because it allows you to, or many brands use it in a way that is not memorable, that uses a lot of data to put something in front of someone that is completely ignorable. That's my answer.
Look, to chime into that, on the telecom industry, there are two cases that happen kind of simultaneously here in the US and in Brazil that for me shows that when you do B2B or any marketing, right, the right way, in the humanized way, it makes a difference. Telecom back in the days used to be all about fibers and satellites and our coverage and our this and that, but very technology oriented. And then Virgin Mobile here in the US and Oi in Brazil, at the same time, they started to do a very humanized communication for the telecom industry. Virgin was making fun of the customers because they were kind of numbers for their carriers while they treat them like humans. Amazing creative ads. Oi, they flipped to we are simple as we can be. And they started using celebrities to make fun of the celebrities as they are hired to promote a brand. So they hire them to mock them about promoting brands. And that completely changed how telecom communicates around the world until today. So in our case at Channel Factory, my US marketing team is here. We try to be very human, less buzzwords, tell exactly what we do. The question we ask ourselves on any ad, any content marketing post, any press releases, if my mom reads it, will she understand what we do, right? I remember once it happens with my grandma, with me. She asked what I do at Channel Factory. I started to explain, and then she was like, oh, so you're not one of those companies that knows what I'm doing on the internet and keeps chasing me all the time, right? Because I would be very disappointed to you. And I said, no, actually, no. We understand the content that you are watching, and we make sure that the ads that are placed on that content are the right ones for you. And she was like, oh, so you don't use any of my information? She knows nothing about data analytics. She's a doctor. Yeah. Like marketing for her is like those ads that she watch on TV, and now that she only watches Netflix, I'm not sure if she see a lot of ads anymore. So I was really happy when she understood what we do, and she understood what we don't do, because the language that we use is so direct, so simple. So I'm talking to a human that is going to buy on the other side, not to a company.
Yep. Obviously, though, you need to reach a specific person, but I think what you'd hear from this group, and I spend a lot of time in here as well, is reaching the right people, having the right partners to help you on the technology side to get that right. But at the end of the day, his grandmother, Luis's grandmother, could be a CTO. So how do you resonate with her? Would you have another question?
Good morning. Yeah. Amanda from Trend Hunter. So as a client success strategist and futurist keynote speaker, I do hear a lot. I know you guys say AI, it's sort of like a buzzword. I hear a lot about authenticity. And authenticity is no different. All generations want authenticity. It just might look different for each generation. So I guess my question is, how do you determine what is truly authentic to your consumer?
Yeah. Megan, you want that one?
Yeah, I think it's defining who you are as a brand, because you can be authentically superficial, if that's what your brand is, or you can be authentically substantive, which is what we are as a brand. So I think it's determining who your consumer is and what value you add to that consumer. And I think that goes back to the last question. It's about leading first with how you can add value to that business or to that consumer. It's that foil of edutainment, letting them know about your brand without them knowing you're telling them about your brand. So I think that's what it is. It's understanding the essence of who you are and showing up consistently against those values that is going to resonate with consumers who have those same values.
Excellent. I think we have two more here.
Yeah, quick question. Jack Hager with Media.net. First and foremost, congratulations to the women on the board for Women's History Month this month. So it's great to see you up there. Love that. This question is for, round of applause real quick. Round of applause for Senna. I hope I'm saying that correctly. So you're really challenged, first of all, courageous move from New York to Baton Rouge. Hopefully your Raising Cane's and sweet tea game is strong these days. But the question I have for you is, you're tasked with building a relatively new brand. So brand is so important to get brand out there. How do you dance the delicate dance of brand, but still utilizing metrics to show your CFO that your dollars are going the right way? That's a real delicate dance, I assume.
Yeah, the best part of me coming in as the first CMO, and thank you for mentioning Women's History Month. As a new CMO, is I get to build everything from ground up. So I'm very excited. It's going to be really busy here. I have my whole team here, and I told them this is a grace period. Enjoy it South by Southwest, but we're going to be really busy this year. But what I'm really surprised I didn't hear is we didn't really talk about brand loyalty anymore. We don't really talk about that anymore. I am really hoping to build that up my bank going forward, because there are a lot of type of loyalties, like premium loyalty, where Apple has. I can't get away from Apple because I'm so stuck to it now, even though I don't really appreciate the design. But I think there's another level of loyalty that you can build, like a reciprocal loyalty, right? Like you invest in your customers, or even before they become your customers, you invest in them so that they kind of come back to you after your investment. So we're doing that through our foundation. We have a B1 Foundation who helps business owners and entrepreneurs, micro business owners, to be bankable. We create, trainings, business trainings, financial literacy education, knowledge sharing, networking, whatever, business owners may need, so they can become bankable and become our customers later on. So we're trying to invest in our ecosystem, not just for our customers, but our whole community we serve.
Yeah. What I love about your answer is that it wasn't about a campaign.
Right.
It wasn't about something else, but it's about who you are. And you said the same thing, Meghan, just about like being authentic to what?
Yeah, like being genuine, right? Like whatever you serve, whoever you're serving, being genuine, deliver on your promises, build that trust, create, invest in your community, and then especially because like finance is a really emotional topic. So how do we, help you and acquire more knowledge, help you with financial literacy, help the, regions we're serving, communities we're serving. How do we invest in there? How do we become not just a bank and financial institution, but also a big part of the community where people are coming to get that knowledge they need.
What I just summarized is that your brand is about helping people be successful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's cool. Cool. Yeah. I think we all done. All right. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.